This is a Fox News alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. The hunt is on right now in France for a woman believed to be an accomplice in a second murderous terror attack in the French capital. It comes at the end of a dramatic and deadly day that saw 3 terrorists and 4 more innocent civilians killed. We have Fox team coverage. Ed Henry's at the White House, where the Obama administration's readiness for this kind of terrorism is being questioned tonight. Catherine Herridge here in the Bureau with a chilling warning from a British spy master that more attacks are coming. But we begin with senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palcott, again live in Paris tonight. Hello, Greg.
Hey, Brett. France's worst nightmare came true this week. Jihadi-style terror sending shockwaves throughout the Paris region. And while the immediate crisis has been resolved, today's events are still haunting a lot of people.
It was an explosive end to a dramatic day. 2 terror-linked hostage standoffs ended by French authorities. A country on edge could breathe for a bit. Following the deadly shooting Wednesday at a newspaper office in Paris, suspects and brothers Sharif and Saeed Kouachi went on the run. With police in chase, they hijacked a car early Friday morning, and the heavily armed men holed up in a printing company 25 miles northeast of Paris, taking 1 hostage. Thousands of police and troops poured in. The 2 said they wanted to die as martyrs. Meanwhile, a few hours later in eastern Paris, a kosher market was stormed by another armed man taking hostages as well. He was Ahmedi Koulibaly, pictured here with his wife and accomplice, Hayat Boumediene, who is still at large. It's believed he was responsible with her help for the killing Thursday of a French policewoman. And authorities now say the 3 men were involved together in past terror activities. Koulibaly declared he would kill his hostages if the Kouachi brothers were killed. Police did storm the first location. The gunman came out shooting and died. The hostage escaped unharmed. Quickly after that, they stormed the market. Hostage taker Koulibaly was also killed. While hostages emerged unharmed, 4 were killed, 4 injured. Even with those mixed results, France's top cop was satisfied.
I wish to express my profound gratitude and admiration to the policemen from the Interior Ministry. With great talent, calm, and coolness, they made it possible to have the hostages freed when the risks were very high.
Security in Paris was already high. The French witnessed these new developments with alarm. Air and ground travel was disrupted. Shops in the city's Jewish quarter ordered shut for fear of reprisals. In a televised message tonight, French President Hollande tried to settle a country's shattered nerves and warned it might not be over.
France is not finished with being a target of threats. Therefore, I want to urge you to be vigilant, to be united, and to be mobilized.
The operation is still not over. Police continue the search for the wife of that suspect. Prosecutors late tonight are saying that there are strong terror ties between that woman and the other individuals in this operation. The prosecutor also said, believe it or not, it could have been worse. 15 sticks of dynamite were found in that kosher supermarket. Brett.
Greg, I know you're talking to authorities there in Paris all the time. One question. It seems like they had cordoned off that entire area before that operation, before going in. It just boggles the mind how she's able to get away in that scenario. Are they saying it's possible she was not in there, or are they confident that she was and she's fled?
There are 2 possibilities, Brett, and you nailed it. First of all, we're not sure that she was in there, but another theory is that when the hostages flooded out, and they did as the police were going in and there was chaos, the wife could have left at the same time, but she is being hunted right now.
Okay, Greg Palcott live in Paris. By the way, the Eiffel Tower flashes at the top of every hour. Greg, thank you. That's right over his shoulder. One of the world's top intelligence chiefs is warning that al-Qaeda militants in Syria are planning more major attacks against the West. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has more on this ominous forecast.
A rare and candid warning from the head of MI5, Britain's domestic counterintelligence and security agency. Speaking at its London headquarters, Director General Andrew Parker warned al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria are planning mass casualty attacks against the West, including the British transit system and iconic landmarks like Big Ben. Quote, "We face a very serious level of threat that is complex to combat and unlikely to abate significantly for some time. My sharpest concern as Director General of MI5 is the growing gap between the increasingly challenging threat and the decreasing availability of capabilities to address it." Parker is referring to the growing number of seasoned al-Qaeda members in Syria, many with ties to Osama bin Laden, known as the Khorasan Group. They include Sanafi al-Nasser and Muhsin al-Fadli. Like ISIS, their use of social media to radicalize and recruit is deeply troubling to British and U.S. intelligence officials.
It's a fundamental challenge for us because as a society, the freedom of speech, the right of privacy is an inherent aspect of our society, of our culture. And yet we find not only private citizens engaged in lawful activity using those same structures.
In an exclusive interview with the Fox Business Network, the NSA director said Paris shows how radical ideology is driving lone wolf and small cell operations.
I just need to engage in behaviors that support these beliefs, and I didn't need to, use targeted violence or indiscriminate violence as a vehicle to help perpetuate this viewpoint of others. That's not a good development for us. That certainly increases the challenge from an intelligence perspective. Boy, that makes life a whole lot harder.
Sharif Kouachi told a French TV station before the takedown that he was sent by al-Qaeda in Yemen, considered the most lethal and capable of the al-Qaeda affiliates. Sharif said the American cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, who led the group's external plotting, financed him. Awlaki was killed by a CIA drone strike in September 2011. U.S. government sources believe the other brother, Saeed Kouachi, traveled to Yemen earlier that same year and made direct contact with the al-Qaeda training camps. Tonight, U.S. intelligence and counterterrorism officials are reviewing a claim of responsibility from al-Qaeda in Yemen, as well as a 4-minute video in Arabic called The Blessed Raid in Paris. Separately, Fox News has confirmed that the FBI and Homeland Security departments have sent out a joint intelligence bulletin to federal, state, and local law enforcement. The bulletin warns the Paris massacre is a departure from recent lone wolf Islamic attacks because it showed evidence of training, premeditation, and reconnaissance. The terrorists carried out the attack during the newspaper's weekly editorial meeting in order to maximize the casualties. Brett.
Catherine, thank you. And as you were speaking, the State Department put out its own warning, a State Department worldwide travel caution, saying U.S. citizens need to maintain a high level of vigilance and take appropriate steps to increase their security awareness. President Obama's terror policy is being questioned tonight by many Americans concerned about what could happen here. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry has that part of the story tonight.
President Obama today wanted to keep the focus on proposing free community college for millions of students without a way to pay for it to a campaign-style crowd. The images a sharp contrast to the horror in Paris, which got a passing mention from the president.
We're hopeful that the immediate threat is now resolved, thanks to the courage and professionalism of the French personnel on the ground. But the French government continues to face the threat of terrorism and has to remain vigilant. The situation is fluid.
Perhaps more interesting is what the president did not mention at all, which specific steps he's taking to protect America. In an interview that will be broadcast this weekend on Fox News Sunday, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Martin Dempsey walked a fine line with Chris Wallace, acknowledging that while the administration is working overtime to try and protect the homeland, there's still angst about whether it will be enough to prevent attacks.
What we try to do across this this swath of radical extremism that stretches really from the Fatah and I suppose we might say all the way over to Nigeria. We try to keep pressure on that network with the suite of capabilities that we have, whether it's intelligence, building partners, in some cases direct action.
Do we need to do more?
Well, I think so, absolutely. But that's not to imply we're not doing enough, if you understand the distinction there. We're doing a lot.
Republicans charge the president does not have a coherent policy to battle Islamic terror, and releasing detainees from Guantanamo may make it worse.
Those terrorists are not on the run. They are being strengthened. That cancer has metastasized. So this isn't like you can, put radiation and kill a tumor and we're done with this thing. This is a cancer that is metastasized around the world.
In fact, one of the terrorists in France was trained in Yemen by al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, even though just 4 months ago the president held up Yemen as a successful part of his counter-terror approach.
The strategy of taking out terrorists who threaten us while supporting partners on the front lines is one that we have successfully pursued in Yemen and Somalia for years.
Meanwhile, in Nigeria, up to 2,000 people were killed by Islamic extremists. Amnesty International says this is the worst attack in the history of Boko Haram. The bottom line is they killed mostly women, children, and the elderly, who simply could not outrun the Islamic extremists, Brett.
Unbelievable. 2,000. Ed Henry, live in the North Lawn. Ed, thanks. A Saudi blogger convicted of insulting Islam was reportedly given 50 lashes today. A witness says Rafi Badawi was flogged after Friday prayers outside a mosque. He was convicted in May of criticizing Saudi Arabia's powerful clerics. Amnesty International says Badawi will receive 50 lashes once a week for 20 weeks in Saudi Arabia. Up next, guess who may be entering the 2016 presidential race? First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 17 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with a 150-vehicle pileup along Interstate 94 near Kalamazoo. Authorities say at least one person died. An unknown number were injured. They're blaming snow, wind, and as you can see, poor visibility. WSVN in Miami, where a former Dolphins football player apparently swam 9 miles to shore after falling off a boat. The Coast Guard says Rob Conrad would not get back onto the boat. He could not, so he headed for land. Conrad played for the team from 1999 to 2004. And this is a live look at Houston, Texas, from our affiliate Fox 26. The big story there tonight, bulldog puppies reunited with their owners after being taken from the front yard of their home by a FedEx driver. Surveillance video shows the pups, valued at $2,500 apiece, being scooped up by the driver. He says he was trying to help the dogs. A couple found them on a road about 20 miles away and contacted the owners. FedEx says the driver's been suspended pending an investigation. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.